You're watching Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. We're continuing our conversation. Of course, this is part two of our conversation of our quest for self-determination, of course, with the Speaker of the 33rd Guam Legislature, Speaker Judy Wampat. Good evening again. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you.
Hey, your voice a little bit hoarse tonight, but
Yeah.
hope you endure. Okay?
Yes,
Anyway.
yes.
We left off last week in regards to Guam's quest for its self-determination with the question, now that we pretty much got a mandate from the governor of Guam, Eddie Bazacalvo, in regards to looking at 2 years as a mark to determine our political status. You once ran for the office of delegate to Washington. Your dad held that since ever since. Mm. And so what should the delegate at this point, having the Band-Aid here, what should our delegate be doing again to ready Congress for this non-binding, whatever it may be, vote that we would be handing to her, that she would be handing and lobbying Congress to make sure that the people's desire, the people's will is again heard in Congress?
And thank you for that question, because when you asked me that question, I actually walked away and started to seriously think about it, and I went back to the time when my father was in Congress and I spent a lot of time in his office. So, I saw some of the things he did, and at the time when he first went, which is, I guess, much better than what we have now, only in the sense that he was sent to Washington from Guam to be like a lobbyist, to lobby for Guam. Then the position changed now to a delegate, and a delegate in Congress. But even with that, it's a Guam's delegate to Congress, not Washington's delegate, for Guam. And I say that primarily because when I was thinking about what my father used to do, is that, and I told you that last week, is that he had a very strong position as to which status he was supporting. But never did he ever waver when it came to what the people wanted. He took what the people wanted and he ran with it. So it came from basically the heart, because it came from the people.
So basically what your bosses told you to do, to lobby, to push for,
exactly.
that's what you did over there.
Yes, and that's the way it should be. So anyway, so that was definitely one real big thing that I saw. And like you said, when I first ran, of course, one of the things I thought of too is that because we've been losing a lot of money, that I wanted to create this grant desk, so that then we'll catch everything, all bills that have been introduced where a state is mentioned, to find out whether Guam is considered and under the definition of a state or not at all. And there's been so many bills that have come through and laws, of course, where we found out later on that we weren't.
One comes to mind just recently, of course, the Obamacare.
Yes.
Obamacare, our delegate had told us this is very good for Guam, very good for Guam. We found out, of course, that will be a very big expense the government of Guam and individuals will have to incur. But then we also find later on that it was not applicable to Guam, and that's
Absolutely.
what we were told.
You're right, and so it's things like that. And then I also then wanted to look at what have I done then as even as senator, as oversight of certain departments and agencies. And granted, I can't hire everybody, but the one thing that I did is that major areas that a lot of research, a lot of time has to be devoted to, is I would have an individual staff member then to concentrate on that particular subject, to see everything that's come through the legislature, anything that's being discussed in the community, research, call, attend meetings, on my behalf. So that's one, something that's similar to like either for war reparations, for compact monies, definitely, because there's a lot going on, granted. But I think if we focus on specifically really Guam issues, I think we would get a handle of it. And the reason why I say this, because I don't know how, although they became sponsors, but I don't know how this escaped us. When I read that there's $5 million that was appropriated for Puerto Rico. And in looking deeper into it, it was $2.5 million from the Clinton administration to appropriate to Puerto Rico. but they have a caveat that they must come up with a plan, and the plan must be accepted by the Department of Justice. And what had happened, the time had lapsed, so then the monies were never as appropriated or spent. Then Obama did the exact same thing, another $2.5 million. So I'm saying, how is it that nobody caught that to say then that, we're not asking 5 million, even half of that, 1/4 of that, to say, okay, Guam is one of the territories that's listed as a colony. There's 3, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and Guam. So therefore, if monies are going to go there, then by all means, extend it over to Guam as well. And although I know some people have criticized me by saying, well, why would you want to go to the U.S.? You want to do this, don't go. Well, when the United States put us on the list under the United Nations, then they have an obligation to be able to assist any one of their colonies as they go through the process. So they have that obligation, and they've demonstrated that with Puerto Rico, and they've demonstrated that also with the Virgin Islands.
Well, I mean, a good example, as we are speaking right now, Obama in his negotiations with Iran, he's taking that to the United Nations first before even taking it to Congress. He's being criticized for that, but he's saying, hey, look, this is the bigger community. This is a community that understands this even more better than you. So he's setting, the president's already that, certain issues that he needs to go to Congress because he'll probably have a more favorable decision over there than he will in his Congress.
Yes, and of course, in this case, a precedent has been set already for, for these types of monies that, will be coming to Guam. And it's not in a form of a grant, $250,000 that we must apply. And then we got to say, what is it that we want to use? You're right, it is. And so versus what they did with the with Puerto Rico, it's 2.5 million straight to the Department of Justice once a plan is sent to them. Why couldn't they do the exact same thing with us then?
Yeah, and even that figure of 250 before, I heard that number higher before, and for some reason, maybe through osmosis that, it evaporated. So about 50 grand of it evaporated. But anyway, we're at that. So that being said, again, that being said, 2 years, a threshold, a time has been set, working towards that. So again, in Congress, what should we be doing in this one? Shouldn't the delegate at this point say, hey, look, the governor had said this. We want to move forward with this. So right now, I mean, again, there's going to be a new Congress coming up here this next year, whoever that delegate may be, but she should be knocking on every door right now saying, hey, look, you might still be here in the next Congress. I might still be here. I need to educate you in what Guam's quest is, if you didn't even know what Guam is, other than a stopover and get a marmar and all that.
And the reason why I say that, too, is because, again, going back to our position, although you're right, we get all rights and privileges of, a congressperson in Washington with the exception of a vote. But nevertheless, we're still really like lobbyists. So therefore, we need to spend our time lobbying all those that we know that are not in favor. Lobby them, find out what is it that they don't understand, what is it that they have against us, or what they don't like, you see. Find out what all those are. And then you strategize. I mean, that's what lobbyists do. When we pay thousands, hundreds and thousands of dollars to them, and they do just that. They have to do an analysis.
And that's exactly what the congressmen and women in Washington do anyway. They cater to their constituency. And then, because when you say, when you're talking about states that have borders and you have some crossovers where Democrats are in line with the Republicans and Republicans are in line with Democrats, and they happen to come from the same state, same constituency, where you have majority of your folks that are Hispanics and things like that. So you have to favor more of issues that pertain to them, not necessarily because it's a party issue, but because more your constituency. So it's nothing new. I mean, when a senator or a congress person from a state, they are doing what their constituency tells them. This recent thing with the Confederate flag, you have folks that are from these states that love their Confederate flag, and the Congress representatives of those jurisdictions that have the strong sentiment for the Confederate flag, they fight for that because that's the base of their constituencies. Doing otherwise will be against what the bosses are saying.
And I think that we are in a very unique situation, and it's advantageous for us, is that we have Chamorros and Guamanians all over the continental U.S. Can you imagine this? And I imagine this, you know, writing template letters to all of the officers of the different Guam clubs and organizations, and then letters to hand out to their membership to send to the individual states. And I know normally that when things like that come about, that out of courtesy, they sent it then over to the Guam office. However, but just the mere fact that, you know, those in California will be sending it, and then in Colorado, and then in Arkansas. I mean, just think.
And then their representatives are the voice for
so then you're right, they become a voice.
They have the constituency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's, I think we have not harnessed, you know, our people, you know, in the mainland to use them to our advantage.
Sure. No, I mean, we talk about it. We talk about the power we have. We talk about all the Guamanians or Chamorros living over there. I mean, I'm sure there are databases of whatever state they are, wherever their Guam clubs are. I'm sure we can harness that. And there again, because when you move over there, you become a first-class citizen because of where you live. You're able to vote for your representative, your district representative, your state senator. And then for the presidency, you're able to do that. So they have a voice. As a matter of fact, our Guamanians, our Chamorros that live in the States, have more voice than our delegate does.
That's what I'm saying. You know, why aren't we? They're so powerful, and we're just not using them.
So again, for this political self-determination, knocking on doors, doing that, and one again should be as a leader like yourself. You're a leader as well, and you may have a desire on what you want, but it's probably not incumbent of a leader to say, this is my choice and this is what it should be. Maybe down the line they ask you, what would your choice be? You would say, this is my personal choice, but you probably wouldn't even try to influence somebody else because it's something that you need to determine, because that's why it's called a self-determination, not just as a self of people, but you yourself, what you think is good for you and your family.
You're right, and you know, and especially now because I'm a member of the commission, so therefore I've got to be really very careful. Now I know that in an election year they're going to go down the line, which political status you're for, and then you just say it, you know, real quickly, rather than say, well, you know, I would take the position of what the people want, but I know I have a personal position as well. So yes, I can say that, so long as I'm not out there advocating, lobbying for, campaigning, you know, being part of a media and awareness to say this is what, you know, because I'm then representing, you know, other government officials from the legislature.
Now take just today you've met behind closed doors with I think the Admiral, the Rear Admiral, okay, regarding the SEIS. Now, would have been, I mean, if we would have determined our political status at this point, this would have been a non-issue.
Absolutely.
This would have been a non-issue. I mean, I understand, you know, all these environmental impact statements that happen to jurisdictions where the military goes, and it's required anyway in regards to whatever construction you have to do. There are environmental studies you have to do. But in regards to, you know, choices of where things should be or where it shouldn't, again, in most jurisdictions that have under, again, the guise of the American democracy and how it works, that works. If the people say, no, your representatives don't say otherwise. Don't do otherwise.
And one example, of course, of that, I remember when the SEIS, you know, came out identifying, of course, Ritidian, the Texan site. And then the people came out and they sent around petitions, and it's 1,000 plus signatures that they personally had presented to the delegate. The very next day, the delegate left, and then a week later, then the amendment was added. Just the opposite of what the 1,000 plus citizens said not to.
I remember that. Yes. I remember that. Yeah, I remember the family. I got to take a quick break, pay some bills, come back.